Hey there, fellow knowledge seekers, and welcome back to Revise and Resubmit. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something you've probably wondered about without even realizing it.
Mysterious.
Like, how do companies decide what to call their new products?
Especially when they're trying to appeal to customers all over the world.
You know, that whole global versus local thing, it gets complicated.
Oh, it definitely does.
Luckily, we've got a research paper that dives right into the heart of it. It's called Role of Brand Globalness in Consumer Evaluation of New Product Branding Strategy.
Mouthful, I know.
But don't worry, we'll break it all down. It was published by Springer Nature in the Journal of Brand Management.
Big names.
And we have to give a shout out to the authors, Plavini Punyatoya, Ashish Sadh, and Sushanta Kumar Mishra. Their research is seriously impressive. All right, so let's jump right in. The authors start by reminding us that a brand is way more than just a logo or a name.
Right, it's not just a pretty picture.
It's about feelings and perceptions.
It's that gut feeling you get when you see a certain brand. And companies put a ton of effort into shaping that image.
It's like crafting a personality for their products.
Exactly.
So this paper zooms in on two main branding strategies. One is creating a completely new name for a product, and the other is extending an existing brand name into a new category.
Like Apple iPhone, right?
Yeah, perfect example.
They used the Apple brand but added iPhone for their new phone.
Instead of coming up with something totally different. So the researchers wanted to see which strategy works better.
And if it matters whether the brand is seen as local or global.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going.
It's all about understanding how consumers make decisions.
So how did they test this?
They conducted two studies. One with shampoo. They considered that a functional product.
Everyday stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the other study was with cars.
Which they classified as a prestige product.
Ooh, fancy.
Now, here's the thing. They specifically chose to do their research in India.
Okay, why India?
It's a really interesting market because you've got these big global brands competing like crazy with super strong local brands.
So it's kind of a battleground for brands.
In a way, yes.
And that means consumers have a lot of choices.
They're not just going to blindly follow a big name.
Gotcha. So they probably had people looking at different brand names and then gauging their reactions, right?
You're on the right track. But they were very methodical about it.
Oh, I bet.
It's a research paper after all. First, they had to pick the right products and brands for their study. They actually did a bunch of pre-tests to make sure everything was categorized correctly.
Wait, back up a second. How did they choose which products and brands to use in the first place?
Well, for the functional category, shampoo was the obvious choice.
Makes sense. Everyone uses it, it's practical.
Exactly.
It's not something people get super emotional about.
It's not like a status symbol or anything.
Okay, shampoo, check.
Yeah?
What about for the prestige category?
They went with cars.
Of course. Cars are definitely a big deal, especially in a market like India.
Right. They're often seen as a sign of success.
So shampoo for functional and cars for prestige. What about the brands themselves?
Well, they needed to pick brands that were clearly perceived as either global or local.
I see.
So they did another pretest where they asked consumers about their perceptions of different brands. For the shampoo category, they ended up going with Ayer Herbal as the local brand and L'Oreal as the global brand.
Interesting. Ayer Herbal is super popular right now. And L'Oreal is, well, L'Oreal. Everyone knows them.
Exactly.
What about for the cars?
They chose Maruti Suzuki as the local brand and Toyota as the global brand.
Maruti Suzuki is huge in India.
And Toyota has that international reputation.
Okay, so they've got their products and brands figured out.
Yeah.
What's the next piece of the puzzle?
They needed a totally different product category to see how people would react to brand extensions.
Ah, so that's where the wallets come in.
You got it. Wallets are pretty far removed from both shampoo and cars.
Definitely.
They even did a pretest to make sure people saw wallets as a separate category.
Clever. So they showed people things like L'Oreal wallet or Maruti Suzuki wallet.
Right. And they wanted to know how people felt about it.
Did they just ask, would you buy this?
They used a 7-point scale to measure both attitude toward the brand and purchase intent.
Oh, that's smart. So they could see not only if people said they'd buy it,
But how they really felt about it.
like how likely they actually were to pull out their wallets.
Yeah.
Did they also take into account how familiar people were with the brands?
Absolutely.
Like if someone had never heard of IIM Herbal, for example.
That would obviously affect their reaction.
It's all about controlling for those pre-existing biases, right?
Exactly. They were looking for those subtle differences that make a big impact on product launches.
This is all making me think twice about my own shopping habits.
We all do it.
But I'm dying to know, what did the researchers find?
Let's dive into those results. All right, let's get into those results.
Yeah, I'm hooked.
So things actually turned out a bit differently depending on whether the product was functional or prestige.
Okay, makes sense. Let's start with the shampoo then.
So for the shampoo, when the brand was global, like L'Oreal, people had a much more positive attitude toward the L'Oreal wallet and were more likely to say they'd buy it
Interesting.
compared to a wallet with a completely new name they just made up.
So a global brand name really gave the wallet a boost, even though it was a totally different product.
Exactly.
Like people thought, well, if L'Oreal makes good shampoo, their wallets can't be bad.
That's the halo effect in action.
Fascinating. But wait, what happened when it was a local shampoo brand? Like IIM Herbal?
Now this is where it gets interesting. When it was a local brand, people actually preferred the wallet when it had a new name, Spacey, rather than being called IIM Wallet.
Really? Wow, that's a surprise. So for those everyday products, a new name from a local brand actually worked better.
It seems that way.
Why would that be?
Well, the researchers think it might have to do with how consumers see global versus local brands.
Okay, how so?
They suggest that consumers are just more open to global brands branching out into all sorts of different categories.
Because they already have that global reputation.
Right. It's that halo effect you mentioned earlier.
It's like they give them the benefit of the doubt.
But when it comes to local brands, consumers might feel like they should stick to what they know.
Makes sense. Like, I trust this brand for shampoo, but wallets, not so sure.
Exactly.
So what about the cars? Did the same thing happen with the prestige products?
That's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay, tell me.
For prestige products, both global and local brands did better when they used a brand extension.
So it didn't matter if it was a Toyota wallet or a Maruti Suzuki wallet. People like them both better than new names.
Exactly.
That's so different from the shampoo.
It seems like when you're dealing with higher status items, that association with a known car brand, whether it's local or global, adds a bit of oomph.
Right. It makes the wallet seem fancier.
People connect cars with success and aspiration, so extending that to a wallet can make it feel more premium.
Oh, I get it. Wow, the more we talk about this, the more I'm noticing these patterns in my own shopping.
Me too. It's like it was all hidden in plain sight.
So this wasn't just some thought experiment, right? They actually talked to real people.
Oh yeah, they surveyed over 591 Indian consumers for this.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
From all different walks of life. They wanted to be sure these results were based on real-world opinions and behavior.
Well, that makes the findings even more convincing. Hey, the paper also mentioned something called EDC admiration. What is that all about?
That's a really important point. It connects directly to this whole idea of global versus local brands.
Okay.
So EDC admiration is basically the tendency for consumers in developing countries to be more attracted to brands from economically developed countries.
So they see those brands as better somehow.
It's not just better, but they represent a higher level of quality or sophistication.
I see. So like that imported label really makes a difference.
Absolutely. It plays a huge role in branding decisions.
This is all so insightful, but every study has limitations, right? What were some of the things the authors pointed out?
Well, one thing they mentioned is that they only looked at two product categories, shampoo and cars.
Yeah, that's true.
And there are so many other products out there.
Right. Tech, clothes, food, everything.
Exactly. Branding strategies might work differently in those categories.
Makes sense.
What else? Another limitation is that they only used one new product category for the brand extensions wallets.
So we don't know if a L'Oreal handbag would work the same way as a L'Oreal wallet.
Right.
Or if a Toyota watch would be as successful as a Toyota wallet.
Future research could look at that.
Interesting.
And of course, there's the question of whether these findings apply to other cultures.
Right. This study was done in India.
And the authors themselves acknowledge that consumer preferences can be totally different in other parts of the world.
Makes me wonder how things would shake out in a culture where local brands are even stronger.
Or where people aren't as wowed by global brands.
Yeah, would those same patterns hold true?
That's a great question for future research.
Well, I think we've covered a ton of ground here today. I'm definitely seeing brand names in a whole new light.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
All that strategy and psychology behind those names we see every day.
It's a whole world unto itself.
So before we got sidetracked talking about limitations, we were discussing how this study focused on India.
And whether the results would be the same in other countries.
It really gets you thinking, right? Like, are there universal branding rules that work everywhere?
Tough question. That's what researchers are still trying to figure out.
Yeah, I guess it's a big puzzle. But we do know cultural context matters a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
What flies in one country might totally bomb in another.
It's like lost in translation, but for brands.
Exactly. So what's a takeaway for companies that want to launch new products globally? It seems like there's a lot to think about.
There is. This research has some really important implications for businesses.
Okay, like what?
Well, for starters, they can't just assume that one branding strategy will work everywhere.
Right, no more one-size-fits-all approach.
They need to really understand their target market.
And their brand's image.
Exactly.
Wow.
And how all those things come together to shape how consumers see them.
So it's about more than just picking a catchy name.
Way more. It's about creating a brand identity that connects with the culture of each market.
Right, it has to resonate with people.
They need to think about whether their brand is seen as local or global in each market.
And whether the product they're launching is seen as functional or more aspirational.
Right. It's all about tailoring the strategy to fit the situation.
It's like a branding recipe. Different ingredients for different dishes.
I like that. And this research gives businesses a good roadmap for choosing those ingredients.
So if I'm a company launching a new product, what are some key questions I should be asking myself?
First, how is your brand perceived in your target market?
Local.
Global.
Right. Then think about the product itself.
Is it an everyday item or something more high-end?
And based on those answers, you can start figuring out if a brand extension or a new brand name makes more sense.
Wow, this is all so eye-opening. I feel like I've learned so much about how brand names come to be.
It's definitely more complex than it seems at first glance.
Huge thanks to Plavini Punyatoya, Ashish Sadh, and Sushanta Kumar Mishra for their amazing research.
And to Springer Nature for publishing it.
This paper has really changed how I think about branding.
Me too. And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of brand names and global marketing. We hope you found it as fascinating as we did. Don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and our YouTube channel, Weekend Researcher, for more deep dives into the world of academic research. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Prime Music. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.